is Deidre with Are You a CPS Victim Like Me? Was supposed to have a scheduled guest this morning, but something must have come up last minute. So we're going to go ahead and do, like I did once before, kind of just a shortened show and maybe speak a little bit about my case. Although, like I said, nothing much has changed in that matter for anyone that has watched my show before. Um, but one thing I did want to share today, I always am obviously interested in reading any kind of news article or um, stories that come about that have to do with CPS or how it's affecting other families out there in this world. And like we all know, it is obviously happening in every part of the world, unfortunately. But this one story kind of um, stuck to me mainly because, of course, it's not a good story, but I don't know if anyone else is familiar with it, but I got it from an app that I always like to tune into, which is Newsbreak app. And it's about a story in New York of a family that was obviously affected by CPS. And I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit about it, and maybe then I'll talk um, about it and go from there. So it was posted 3 days ago, and it's about somebody by the name of Catherine Kasanoff, who was a prosecutor facing, criminals and gang members, and she actually beat breast cancer twice. But it said that she was affected by the broken New York family court system, and that would ultimately be what ended up killing her. She posted to Facebook on May 27th a letter that announced that she was a mother of three and was scheduled to die by assisted suicide in Switzerland later that day. She said, "It is with a profound heartbreak that I am writing my last post ever. Today I will be ending my own life. In the last 4 years of my life, I have woken up every day to a nightmare like no other," she wrote in her public suicide note. She's 54, and she's an attorney who once served as a special counsel to New York Governor Kathy Hochul. And she wrote that she'd recently been diagnosed with terminal cancer, but blamed her decision to die then and by assisted suicide on an ongoing alleged abuse by her ex-husband in a messy custody battle. She had three daughters, ages 9, 12, and 13. Despite having no criminal history, mental health issues, or history of substance misuse, Catherine claimed the court took her home, her dogs, her life savings, and continued to deny her visits with her children. She said she cannot survive this torment and the grief that comes from such a prolonged separation from my children. The court system did this to me. It is a predatory system that functions in darkness through gag orders like the one in my case, through a publicly inaccessible docket, through a closed courtroom, and through ex parte temporary orders that are in place for years. Friends who saw Catherine's alarming social media post say they reached out immediately. In May 27th text message seen by the post, Catherine's friend and colleague, Jonathan Dadehoff, pleaded with her not to go through with the suicide, to which she replied she can't put her kids through this any longer. Please fight the fight. I cannot. She also had a friend, which was a mother fighting the family court system after being cut off from her children in 2018, and she described Catherine as laser focused on how to support her girls. The story goes on to say that she wrote to Catherine right after she received an email version of the suicide note, and that Catherine wrote back, "I am so happy to hear from you and so sad for both of us. Please use my story to get change accomplished. Please don't use it to give up too. I feel so completely connected to you." This post later on said that no one has spoke to Catherine since then. It also went on to say that the attorney for the executor of Catherine's estate said he is awaiting definite confirmation of her death, which could take up to 4 to 6 weeks. And it said, like many of Catherine's friends, he believes that she did die in Switzerland because she felt she had no other options left. The story continues to go on in saying that Catherine once said someone is going to have to die before they take these things, such as alleged abuse by the family court, seriously. Her good friend and self-described fellow survivor and advocate, Elizabeth Harding Weinstein, said that Catherine was a warrior. I hope they're paying attention now. Catherine and her husband were married in 2006, and he filed for divorce in 2019. Friends of Catherine said the former couple's problems started well before the divorce proceedings began. in videos that now have over 10 million views on TikTok. Chronicles Chronicles Allen's, which is the husband's, alleged verbal and emotional abuse towards Catherine and their daughters. In one video, Allen is heard shouting, "I hate you," at Catherine. He also calls her a fat old loser. In another disturbing video, a young girl can be heard crying in the background as Allen, the father, says he refuses to take his daughter to school. He says, "Take your daughter. I'm not taking her. She's spoiled and I'm not taking her. She will be punished by not going today." He continues about his daughter. "I'm not dealing with her anymore. I will no longer take her to activities over the weekend. I will no longer do nice things for her. She will be treated the way everyone else." Allen's lawyer for comment on the videos. No one has heard back. Catherine's final Facebook message included a now defunct Dropbox link that contained thousands of court filings and numerous legal documents, medical records, and videos, including videos used in TikToks. The story ends in saying she explained that the contents of these files prove she did nothing wrong and maintained that her children were taken away as a result of unfair rulings, a disgraced custody evaluator, a money-motivated attorney for the children, and the court favoring the moneyed party. Before her alleged death, Catherine was successful in proving some of her allegations about the dysfunctional court proceedings. The story kind of hits home because, again, it's about a mother who obviously has been ripped away from her children for no reason other than, like we all know, the legalities of this corruption of, the funding and money, basically, and to know that she had been separated from her children for so long, and how she literally went on to say that she woke up every day just, feeling like she had no purpose left in this world, and really went through with taking herself out of this world because she felt like if she can't do what she wanted to do as far as being a mother for her children and seeing her children, she really felt like there was no other reason for her left in this world, which again, I'm sure most parents feel that same like hurt and disgust as far as when your kids get taken from you and God forbid end up, in results of like my youngest adoption. I mean, as the days go on, and I get, pop-ups on my phone of, memories from, this time, today, last year, or just, of anything. Thoughts go through my head, or my two older kids will bring something up about my youngest. And it's just, I still sit here and question, how this system can really be doing what it's doing. And, not only kidnapping your kids, but then, never seeing them again. And, like a lot of us parents, I'm guilty of it as well. Before I became involved with CPS, I was like many other that thought that, they were out there to do what they're supposed to do and, remove children that need to be removed and help the families, do whatever they need to do to be back reunited. But obviously, we all find out that that's sadly not the case. And if anything, I feel like they're more set up to do the opposite because of the funding. I know I've mentioned this several times on my show before, but it's like I was taking a shower this morning and it's just a thought in my head. Number one, the foster parents that were taking care of my youngest since day one had always told me and was always trying to advocate in the fact that they would do anything to help support reunification with my son. Now, granted, I get it. This was their first time ever having a placement. They had just become foster parents. I also understand that they can't have their own children, biologically, but yet they really want to have children. So again, here they're handed my child at, a month old. He's obviously healthy, beautiful. And as time progresses, I get it. They get attached. But I also have known that in order to become a foster parent, and if that's really what you're doing it for, as far as to support the parents in getting their children reunited, your number one goal is reunification. So in other words, do not try and get attached to this child because that's not kind of like the end result, especially in our situation. I mean, I don't know how it is with other parents, but they knew from day one that we never wanted to give our child up. And this was very hard for us and heartbreaking. And the way that they kind of just played us along and made us feel like, we would never have to fear them trying to fight us for our own child. But sadly, when it got closer to our TPR hearing and we had to do um, this mediation with, a mediator for this post-adoption agreement contract, which I found out from Mr. Davis has no, legal enforcement in the courts. So it's kind of like, why do we do it? I don't know. But that's when the true colors came out from these foster parents, and when they were trying to let us know, if the adoption went through, what kind of, visitation we might get after the fact. And, to let us know that it was going to be maybe once a year on his birthday if we were lucky. I mean, that's where all their true colors ended up showing. They didn't want to give us our child back. They wanted to keep our child. And I mentioned once before in my show that, they even then hired their own private attorney. And, it's like, how could human beings that can't have their own child but want to adopt try and continue to live their life knowing that they've pretty much done everything in their power to prevent me from having my child back? And again, I understand they got attached, which they shouldn't have. But I mean, it got so bad to where, now I have been fortunate enough to see my youngest. He'll be 3 in October. But I have been fortunate enough to see him 2 times since the TPR hearing, which was last July, only for 30 minutes each. I got to bring my 2 older boys with me. But, even this last time, they told me something before I came to the visit in stating that I just want to make it be known that, my child refers to us as, mama and daddy. So please refer to us as the same. I kind of chuckled inside of myself thinking, yeah, you take me to my death before I result in saying, mama and daddy to you guys in front of him. But I found myself during that, visit, so to speak, very tongue tied because ever since my child was born, I've always referred to myself as mama. Like when I'm doing things with him, oh, mama help or mama do, or, mama's coming. But towards the end of this whole nightmare, I was also realizing that, like, let's say during a visit, I would say something along the lines of to my child, youngest, oh, mama's coming, mama's coming. And the look that my child would give kind of like, it made me put everything together and realize that, wait a minute, I think she's referring to herself as mama as well, because you kind of look around the room like, when I would say that, I'm thinking, no, that can't be. And then sure enough, it was like not only a week later, the foster mom would come to pick up my child from the visitation center. And all of a sudden, my son turned and looked at her and said something like, mama. Oh my gosh, that in itself, I think, was like one of the hardest, like, pills to swallow or stabs to the heart, because not only did I realize that she was referring to herself as mama, but now think about it. Anytime going forward, if I were to address myself as mama, not only is it kind of making my son also think about now this individual, the foster mom, but it's like that's the last thing I want to do during my time with my child is to keep bringing up this individual. And now I'm thinking, my poor child, he's so confused, and how wrong of her to do that. I mean, when you have children and let's say you have multiple grandparents and, you want to decipher between, the maternal grandmother and the paternal grandmother. So maybe one will be called Nana and one will be called Grandma or Gammy or something, you give different names. So the child knows like who it is that you're addressing. I mean, gosh darn it though, like my little thing with my youngest, when he was a newborn, and I would have my visits, as sick as this sounds, I used to think like, well, what am I supposed to do with him? Like he's a newborn. So some of the times I would just be sitting there feeding him and he'd fall asleep, or I'd be rocking him to go to sleep. But my thing is I had this kind of like little hymn of a tone, like mothers, they always kind of like think of something and then they always do it. So as silly as this was, my little tune to him was like, mama's boy, mama's boy. But the way I'd say it and like be patting him and rocking, it was kind of like his little thing between me and him. And I'd get his certain blanket that I would always bring to kind of have like that sense of attachment with him when I would be with him. And to think now, fast forward, not only is she referring to herself to him as like mother as well, but to use that exact lingo, like mama, what I would always do, Like she could have been like a little bit more sincere and thought of something else like mommy or mom or something, but no, she went straight for the sucker punch. So to tie it all in with my thought here is that last visit I had with him at the park, and the foster dad had mentioned that to me. I caught myself, I was putting him in the swing or something, and I right away went something like, "Oh, here, mama," and I caught myself because again, not only do I not want to bring up this foster mom during my time with him, but I didn't want him to right away give me a reason to say like, "Oh, oh, oh." Now remember, because he had told me not only does your child refer to us as mama and daddy, but you're referred to now as bio mom. So what am I supposed to say to my child now? Like, oh, here, bio mom will help you, or bio mom. I mean, just the little things like that. And I don't know. Again, I just want to tie into the fact that to know that CPS is out there for what it's supposed to do, and not only are they doing the opposite, it's like, how do they continue to think that these children are now going to go on and live a normal or okay life with the fact of ripping them from their biological family, ripping him from his biological brothers, meaning it affects their brothers. And yet, they have the decision to change his name on his birth certificate if they haven't already. They could pick up and move and go wherever they want, change their phone number, and they don't ever have to speak to me again. And that's their choice. So every day of my life now, I continue to live on eggshells and wonder when maybe I'll possibly get to see him again. That's another thing. I tried to make up an excuse this last time around of thinking of maybe ideally in my mind of when I might get to see him again. So we used to take my youngest to this splash pad at the park by my house, like when it was hot last summer, and he loved it. I mean, he was just getting to that stage last summer where, he was going to be 2, he was 1.5. And so, he was walking and stuff, and just the water and everything, and just, all of the sensory feelings of it all, and just really liked it. And so I knew that come this year he'd really like it because he's at a little bit of an older stage. He'll be 3 in October, and my 2 older boys, they're so into that. My oldest is 11, and my youngest he'll be 11, and my middle child is 9. So I thought that would be fun for them to get to go to the splash pad with my youngest. So I kind of threw it out there, and I said, hey, the splash pad that we went to last year, their summer hours are going to be opening up. And I kind of gave him the time and whatever to try and think that, number one, would he catch on to that and maybe agree? And number two, in my mind, it would give me a mental time frame of when I might see him next. I see people are commenting. So let me see. The only thing that has kept me from expiration on myself is the look on their face when they drove off that night. I will never have that embedded in my head. Nellie, I don't think I read the first part of your comment. And I'm new to this, so I don't know if comments. Let me go back. No. I'm not sure. Okay, Nellie said, CPS took my 5 children 4 years ago. I am still fighting to this day. My children and I are sick. I just recently found out I have liver flukes. Therefore, I know for as well they do too. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying with liver. That's the reason they took them, because I took them to the hospital and they put me in the net house and took them. Oh my gosh. So here you get they said I was seeing things. I was crazy. I went through every hoop, everything. They've asked, never missing one court date. Is your case still open, Nellie? The only thing that has kept me from expiration on myself is the look on their face when they drove off that night. Oh, I see. Grace is letting me reread these. Okay, so Nellie, is your case still open, or my daughter has been moved 40 something times? It's traumatizing. I only live for them, but they are my heart. I can't live without my heart. Oh, believe me, I still feel like I'm not going to ever give up on my youngest, even though it's a parasite. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Nellie, real quick, I do my show every Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. And if you want to come on and be a guest on my show, there's a number on the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, the 888 number. If you want to call that number, Grace is the producer. and you could tell her that you were, watching the show today and you want to come on and share your story, and I would love to have you. And maybe we could talk a little bit more details about it. But from what you said so far, I mean, it's just they're trying to make it seem like, the court system and CPS, that they always want to do what is in the best interest of the child. How is it in the best interest of my youngest child to basically rip him away from his biological mother, father, siblings, and put him with these foster parents for the rest of his life? For what? I mentioned once before in my show that during my TPR, before my youngest child had said on record that, from the initial allegations, which are all the typical bogus stuff, substance use from my husband, possible domestic abuse, and then my charge was, failure to protect. That was in a nutshell why our kids were taken from us and why ultimately I lost my youngest. But the attorney for my youngest child said on record that morning that she could see the parents have come from such a, has made so much progression and is continuing to go in the right direction. And if only we just had one more year, I could see child returning home. But unfortunately, in this kind of situation, we're just out of time. I repeat that over in my head every day, almost thinking how this individual could have the power to basically say yes or no in giving me my child back, and say herself that she could see the parents have come so far from whatever it was, and that if we had one more year, she could see the child going home. But guess what? We're out of time. And she can go to bed every night knowing that, and knowing that she's ripped a child from its mother. And, the fact that this child now will grow up in this, stranger of an atmosphere. I've mentioned once before too, my child is half black and I'm white, so his father's black. But the placement, the foster parents are blonde haired, blue eyed, Mormon, very, very different structured of a household than what his genes should really be brought up in, if anybody is making sense of what I'm trying to say and go with here. He's going to get in that older part of his years where, gosh darn it, just by the look of him, he's not going to fit in. Not only is he not going to probably feel fit in with his physical features, but I can only imagine the way that he's being raised. I don't really focus so much on an individual's lifestyle based off of their religion, although I am Christian. I was baptized Catholic. I went to Catholic school my whole life, even all girls Catholic high school, and I loved it. I loved everything about it. But as far as going and practicing in a Catholic church in my adult years, it's not for me. Christianity is what Catholicism is based off of. It's just when you go to a Catholic church and when you go to a Christian church, I would never, and I never have gotten anything out of going to a Catholic church, because to me, it is just so like military style. You get up, you sit down, listen to the first reading, listen to the second reading, listen to the homily, and then you do the whole, Eucharist, and then basically you're done, goodbye. And now people are cutting each other off as they're exiting the parking lot because, they want to act like they're such, good Christians because they went to church, but, here they are already just being so rude to people. But now, rewind a little bit. I came across a pastor out of South Carolina. I don't know if anybody has heard from him. He's kind of popular. His name is Stephen Furtick, and he's out of Elevation Church. His music, how do you say it, ministry or whatever, from his church just won a Grammy last year, actually, for gospel something or another, or Christian music. But anyways, I started listening to him when my case kind of started happening, because, when you're going through something like this in your life, you kind of always want to look for any kind of avenue that might give you a sense of, like a family sort of feeling. Anyways, I came across him, and I just, ever since him, I have not only like religiously heard him almost every Sunday, but going back to religion and how you raise your child. I never baptized my children in the Catholic Church because, again, I didn't want to go that route. I didn't go to Catholic Church anymore myself. But, when I started listening to this pastor, and I found a church in, I'm from Orange County, California. I found a church in Irvine over, kind of like by Newport off the 405 freeway, if anyone's familiar, called Mariners Church. And oh my gosh, I fell in love with the church itself too. And everything about it. I mean, the way that they have, activities going on throughout the service for the children, just the campus itself, how big and beautiful, and, waterfalls and little, like, riverbanks, and, just the way that you can come and watch church or be a part of it. You could sit out on the lawn, you can go inside their big, like, auditorium type thing. You could even go in a little chapel. What I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, my child is being raised in this Mormon kind of lifestyle and belief system that I just don't agree with whatsoever. I don't agree with a lot of the things that they do in their life and how they raise their children. And again, now to know that my child is being raised in this, you know, kind of family lifestyle, it just, everything about it is just so heartbreaking. And again, I didn't have a guest on my show today, so sometimes when I do my shows by myself, I kind of feel like I'm not structured. Maybe I should start doing a little outline or being more prepared as far as when a guest doesn't show up last minute, to make you as a guest feel like I'm, doing something with this show. But again, I like to do these shows to just get the word out there, to maybe educate more people that don't know how corrupt CPS is and what they are doing, and maybe continue to do what they can do to fight this fight. And maybe hopefully one day something can be done or a change will be made, because, it's just really sad to think that a group of people or entity is not only doing what they're supposed to do and help children reunify with their family if they have hit a bump in the road, but to think that they're literally kidnapping these kids in a way to find these families that want to adopt and to get the money. And it's all about funding, and screw these families. We don't care what the best interest is of the child. And then flip it on you in a way where, they want to make you feel like you're the crazy one. Like Nellie just mentioned, that, make it seem like you're crazy and you're seeing things or this or that. Well, yeah, you better, sorry to say, damn well believe I'm going to be crazy. You've taken my child from me. And, and they just twist everything around on you. Anything that you do that is looking like, you're going in that right direction, you're complying, they'll like throw you a curveball or just do something that will just make you want to react. And a lot of people that unfortunately have substance abuse issues and, have and are trying to remain sober, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up making them, have a relapse and go backwards. But again, that's what they're wanting to do to you, because they want to have some kind of solid proof, to back their reasoning up as to why you can't have your child be reunited, and to, again, hopefully adopt them out and get that extra funding. So I'll close with this. Like I've mentioned once before on my show, my mother had my two older children the whole time and still does. And she was obviously willing to do legal guardianship. She stated to my caseworker at the time that, hopefully my daughter will wake up one morning and see the light and, do whatever she has to do to get her kids back. Granted, she was kind of the one that prevented me from reuniting with my kids, because she got suckered into the funding part and the money and started really enjoying all this money she got every month to have my kids. But that's another story in itself. But the thing that I still, you know, don't understand every day is, because my mom was willing to be the legal guardian of my two older children, I technically didn't lose my parental rights. I just, you know, don't have them back in my custody. Granted, I see them every weekend, literally all day, every day. Today it's my husband's birthday, so they're at summer school right now. So I'm going to go pick them up afterwards, and they'll be with me for the rest of the night. And give them their showers here, and feed them dinner and everything. We might go see the new Transformers movie. I think my husband said he wanted to take my kids to, and then take them back home. So I basically have my children anytime that they're not like at school or at a function, but yet my mom still is the legal guardian and she gets the money for them. But my point is I still have a chance to go back to court and terminate this guardianship with my mom, and have my kids back when I feel like I have enough evidence and support to make that happen. Because again, it's not going to be easy. But with my youngest child, because these foster parents obviously wanted to adopt my child and they pushed them along all the way for it, now I see then I resulted in having my rights terminated because they were willing to adopt. Now, how can I be an okay enough parent because my mom was willing to be the legal guardian to one day potentially get my kids back and not have my rights terminated, but because these parents, foster parents, want my child and are willing to adopt, then that's it. Game over for me for that child. It does not make sense. And again, it's almost like I want to look at these foster parents in their eyes and be like, so just because you wanted to be sick enough in the head and steal my child and are willing to adopt, now they have the reasoning to terminate my rights because of the funding. And now you get my child, you win, they get their money, they win. And who suffers at the end of the day? My child and me and my husband and my children. Now, how does that make sense for an entity that is supposed to be out there protecting children and doing the best interests of these children? It just, it's not rocket science, people. There are too many families on a day-to-day basis that we are hearing about, under Mr. Davis's platform or just in the news, like I read the story earlier today. I don't understand how it is going on everywhere in the world and so many families are affected, but yet why are we not making a big enough like noise, or why aren't we like bringing it more out to the people that don't know so that maybe they can help us fight too? I don't understand. My simple like kind of solution to it all is take away the funding. If there's no funding, I don't think that these sick individuals, like let's say that are in it for the check or in it for the money, obviously they would be knocked out of the field. Granted, then they probably would result with, well, now we don't have any families to foster these parents, why these parents are trying to reunify. I don't know. Think of something though, because obviously it's not doing what it's supposed to do and it's doing the opposite. And if anything, it's like, wait until one of these, other family members that are, in the system somehow somebody get affected. What would they do? Well, granted, we all know what they would do. They would use their power and win at the end of the day. So I guess it really doesn't matter. But, it's just, we need to keep getting the word out and just keep like letting it be known really what's going on. Because, most of the day, if you're, a God fearing person or just someone with a heart and you hear a story kind of like similar to mine, you would think that another individual would kind of be like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that really happened to you. Like, yes, please, what can I do to help support you or get the word out? Or now I know what CPS is about, or, not maybe judge, you know, families right off the bat when you find out that they're involved with CPS, because that's how I used to be. If I found out my neighbor, got their kids taken from CPS, I would have started looking at them sideways and thought, oh, they must have done something. But now it's almost like not only do I feel so ashamed and disgusted knowing that I was a part of it and here I lost a child to it, but it just fringes me that much more to think there's other families out there like the story I just shared this morning. This mother now basically took her life. She killed herself. Granted, now these daughters of hers will not only never have a mother again, but she already felt like they didn't because she wasn't able to see them anymore. And to know that she literally took her life because of it. And like she said, maybe now that I took my life, maybe something will be done or it will, a change will come of this. And it's sad to think that that's what parents are having to result in knowing that they have lost all hope and all feelings of support. That's another thing I wanted to say about my situation is, yeah, my mom had my two older children. You would think that was great. It was great for my kids because they got to stay within a family atmosphere, but it was horrible in the fact that I don't talk to my mom. My mom is still thinking in her head that I'm just some sick individual that must have done something to where not only did I never get my two older kids back, but that I lost my youngest. Little did she know, she was the one feeding the social worker's ear on a day-to-day basis because, again, she decided to get to that point. I've been with my husband for 13 years. Granted, I mentioned once before he's black. My mom raised us as Catholic, meaning in the Bible, and what she raised us to be, you don't see color. We weren't raised to be racist, but my mom's very much so racist when it is convenient for her, if that makes sense. So, it got to the point where she started to have a different feeling towards my husband, and then her true colors came out as far as, all of that goes. And she just could not understand why I would not leave my husband when my kids got taken. I'm sorry. Marriage is till death do you part. My husband might have hit a couple bumps in the road as far as substance abuse or whatnot, but at the end of the day, my husband loves my children just as much as I do, if not more. My family used to say in a joking but not so joking fashion, in the fact that if you and my husband were to ever separate, he's taking his boys with him, as far as they knew how much my husband is not only, a dad and a father, but I mean, my kids were and still are his world. I mean, it's just torn him apart even more to witness in, everything we've gone through. But again, it's like, even I saw the change that he obviously was willing to make and did and has. And I mean, like any parent you would think would do anything to get their children back. But to know that everything we did do and we did stick together and stay a team like you should, as a marriage, the mind frame of reunification for the whole family, not separate the mother and father or whatever. But they used to tell my mom that, if she leaves my husband, she'll get her kids back. So again, not only was she all in favor for that, but she could not understand why I would not leave my husband. She said to my kids all the time, your mother is picking your father over you guys. And, if your mother would just do what she's supposed to do and leave him, then you would go back home. So my kids would tell me that, Mom, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? Well, what's that? You're supposed to leave dad. It's just sick to think that, I basically, the end point of this thought process was to say, I don't have a family. The only family I had a very small family. My father passed away a couple years ago, but I never had a close relationship with him. My sister and brother live in Vegas, where my dad also lived. Don't have a close relationship with them. My brother, is considered the golden child of us three, because he just did everything the way that you should or would think that you would want to do in life, go to college, went to law school in 3 years, passed the bar the first time, met a wonderful wife of his now that he has, but, did all that the right way. Granted, he did all the things that other people do in life as far as experimenting or having fun. Let's say maybe a drug phase in his life or drinking phase. But you know what? Sorry to say, he just never got caught up. But, then you look at these other parents that, let's say, okay, yeah, they had a little experiment in life of drinking or whatever and driving, not obviously for that or preaching about it, but they had, the bad luck of the black cloud and they got a DUI. Well, now they might use that against them one day to take their kids from them and say, they have a substance abuse problem. But my point is I just, I didn't have a family to support me during all of this, and I definitely don't have one now, because they all just think that, whatever it was that they thought about me, stereotypes or whatnot beforehand, are definitely true, if not more proven, because of the situation with CPS. But, you know, it's sad to think that you get your kids taken from you, you do everything you're supposed to do, you comply, you end up resulting in losing a child like mine, my youngest, and then not to have a family there to support you, if anything, support this world of CPS and corruption to keep you from your kids. Again, I don't even know who my mom is anymore at the end of the day. And it's just really sad, because you would think that family is there for you like blood, no matter what. I definitely know, ever since I've had kids, I would never raise my kids, and I don't raise my kids the way I was, as far as, I tell my kids all the time, no matter what you do in life, you're going to come to me and you're going to tell me. Don't be afraid of me. Don't feel like I'm going to, look down upon you. Yeah, if you did something wrong, of course I might be disappointed, or I might, punish you in some sort of way with a punishment, like, but I'm never going to abuse you. I'm never going to neglect you. I'm never going to stop loving you. And, if anything, I tell my two older kids all the time, even though my youngest is technically adopted, I'll never stop fighting for him. And, that's another reason why I do this platform under Mr. Davis is, you know, I'm also saving up on the side to hopefully one day, when I'm ready to terminate my legal guardianship with my mom, that I can, hire Mr. Davis and help represent me, because like he said, you can't go in there representing yourself, because it's a whole nother world. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know the rules of the game, if that makes sense. So, I will obviously hopefully hire him to do that so that I'm successful, but I'm also hopefully saving up to maybe one day hire him on to see if there's any way, shape, or form to, fight this adoption of my youngest, because there has been one story that he's talked about on his show before not too long ago. I believe she was out of San Diego, and her kid was adopted. And after 5 years of fighting, not only did she get her child back, but she got her parental rights reinstated. Granted, Mr. Davis said, it's one of those situations where all the stars have to align and, you know, very, very like not the norm, but it happened. So, never, never give up on your kids and never stop fighting. So, anyways, Nellie, I don't know if you're still listening. I think that was your name, but if you want to be on my show in the future and come on and share your story, I'd love to have you, or anybody else out there that wants to come on and maybe share how you've been a victim of CPS, or maybe even as a child, speak about that, or share some insights that you have, because the more and more we talk and the more and more we speak, hopefully, like I said, maybe one day we'll make a change and have this entity do what it's supposed to do and keep children in their homes and give parents whatever resources they need to be reunited with their kids and have children grow up in their biological setting or family that they should be. Okay, thank you everyone for watching, and I will be back on Thursday at 10 o'clock. Have a good day. Bye bye.